Alright guys, so this is going to be the last of our review here, and we're going to be looking at the comparisons of parallel versus perpendicular slopes and just how that works. So before we do that, of course, we're going to start with our bell work. So if you haven't had a chance to do it, make sure you pause the video and give it a try. Alright, so I'm going to assume that you did it, so here's how we do it, just to make sure that you did it right. So the first thing we're going to do here is write out our equation using that slope, so y equals 3x plus b. Then we're going to use this point and plug it in. So y would become 3, x would become 2, and now we can solve for b. So we get 3 equals 6 plus b. Move that 6 over, and we're going to get that negative 3 equals b. So now our full equation is going to be y equals 3x minus 3. All right. Now for the next one, it's exactly the same kind of idea, except that this time we've got a different slope, so it's a little bit more complicated because it's a fraction. So y equals 1/2 x plus b, and again, we plug in our point now. So y becomes 4, our x becomes 3, and so we get 4 equals 3/2 plus b. Oh, 1 second here. Plus b, and then we just need to move that over. So it's not any different, it's just that it's a little bit trickier because we're going to have to go 4 minus 3/2 equals b. So to work that out here, we're going to need a common denominator. So instead, it's 4 over 1 minus 3/2. We're going to change that into a 2, so it'd be 8/2 minus 3/2 equals b, and we're going to end up with 5/2 equals b. So our final equation then is going to be y equals 1/2 x plus 5/2. Awesome. All right, let's jump into the lesson for real here. So what we're going to do here is take a look at what these slopes would be, and if we have a parallel slope, it means the same slope, and if we have a perpendicular slope, it means that we need to have the negative reciprocal slope. So the obviously parallel is pretty easy, perpendicular is a little bit tricky, but not hard. So here, examples here would be obviously to just literally do 2. Now you'll notice like sometimes it might be written different, like maybe it's written at 4/2, but obviously that simplifies to 2 still. Perpendicular slope means that we're going to take that 2, we're going to put it on the bottom, and then we're going to make it negative to give it that negative reciprocal. So here, obviously 1/3 gives some example of something else. It could be like 3/9, okay? And for our negative reciprocal, we cross the line to make it 3 and make it negative. All right, obviously here it's the same slope, so -7, or again, we could make it something else like -21/3. Sometimes it will be written as a fraction. Don't be fooled if it's simplified to the same thing. And our perpendicular slope would then become 1/7. Because it was negative, it now became positive. So as we keep going here, 5/2, obviously it's the exact same. Or again, we could have something that is a similar fraction. Now for this one, you'll notice like it's not going to just be a 1 because it's already a fraction. So we flip the fraction to 2/5 and make it negative. So careful with how that works. It's just a little bit different there. Same thing here, -4/3 for our parallel slope. Of course, we could write that as something else like -8/6. And to flip it, we flip that fraction to 3/4. It was negative. Negative, negative, of course, becomes positive. So we're going to just make it positive. It's not any different if we have a variable. So if our slope is x, then the reciprocal is going to be 1 over x. And then, of course, it needs to be the negative reciprocal, so -1 over x. And likewise here, if we've got a slope of 1, keep in mind that could also be written as anything over itself. Okay, and as much as like we need to cross the line here to make it 1 over 1 and make it negative, the truth is that's just -1. So when it is 1, it is a little bit different in the sense that you don't really have to flip it, so to speak, because 1 over 1 is still just 1. Okay, now let's put this into some practical use here. So we've been given the first line here. Find an equation of a line that is parallel to this line and goes through a point 3, 4. So what this means here is that we're trying to find two lines. Just going to kind of give you a bit of a sketch as to what's going on here. So this one here, 4x minus 1, so it's going to go through this point, and it's going to be fairly steep. So I'll be, oh, hang on, my writing tablet stopped working here. Just one sec. All right, there we go. So it's going to be quite steep like that, and this would be our line y equals 4x minus 1. And what we want to do is find a parallel one that's going to go through this point 3, 4. So it's going to go through a point that's like somewhere over here, okay? Now, I'm not going to bother putting it in because we haven't built an actual scale, but if it's going to go through a point over here, what it means is that it's going to be a line that is parallel like this, okay? But it's going to be to the right of it. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out what that would be. Now, remember, in our form, this 4 here, that's our slope. So we're going to have the exact same, like y equals 4x, but now instead of minus 1, it's some new y-intercept. And we're going to use this point that we know our new line goes through to figure it out. So y would be 4, x would be 3, and then we just work that out. So 4 equals 12 plus b. We subtract 12, and we're going to get negative 8 is our b value. So our line is going to be y equals 4x minus 8. So this point down here is going to be negative 8, same way that this one here was negative 1. And so this line is y equals 4x minus 8. And so that would give us the parallel line where they're exactly the same. They're never going to cross. They're just moved up and down or left and right of each other, depending on how you want to look at it. So let's do another quick example of this here. So this time we've got another line. It's not so easy to figure out what the slope is from it. And we want to find the equation of a line that is perpendicular. So remember, this means negative reciprocal slope. Okay? So the first thing is then obviously we need to find out what that slope is. And it goes through the origin, which is going to be the point 0, 0. So let's take that equation and let's rearrange it so that we can make it so that it's solved for y. So the easiest way to do that is going to be to move that 3x over. You can do this however you want, but this is just how my suggestion. So we're going to get negative 4y equals 6 minus 3x. Now, usually we write it with the x first, so let's change that. Doesn't make any difference, but you know, it's good for us to look at it the same way. Then we're going to divide by negative 4, which means we need to divide everything over here by negative 4. Y is equal to negatives cancel, so just 3/4 x. Here, it becomes negative, and we can simplify it. 6 over 4 is exactly the same as 3 over 2. So that would be the equation of our original one, which means then that this is our slope. So now we're going to use that slope in order to figure out our perpendicular line here. So if that's our slope, if the slope is 3/4, then the slope of the perpendicular line is going to be flipped fraction and negative. So it's y equals negative 4/3 x plus b. And then remember, it goes through the origin, which means that this is just going to be 0 equals negative 4/3 times 0 plus b. And so quite simply, b is 0. So the final equation is simply going to be negative 4/3 and x, like so. All right. So now there's a chance here for you guys to do a practice. So if you haven't done it yet, well, you haven't, give it a quick pause, give it a try, and then unpause and check and see here. All right, so hopefully you already did this, but let's confirm that you've done it correctly. So for A here, find the equation of the line parallel to the given one passing through negative 2, 1. So the first thing here is obviously that line doesn't help us. It's written in standard form, which is not really helpful to us at all. We need to make it so that it's written in the form y equals mx plus b. Sorry, that's a 0. So we're going to move over that y. So we get 3x plus 2 equals 4y. I'm going to rearrange that to write it the way that we usually do, which is just 4y equals 3x plus 2, because which side these things are on doesn't matter as long as they're still all equal. Then, of course, I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to divide everything here by 4, and then I'm going to simplify it just a little bit, because 2 over 4 could just be written as 1/2, which is a little bit easier. Why did I do that? Because now this is my slope here. Okay? So, if I'm looking at that slope, I now want it to be a parallel line, which means it has to have the same slope. So when we do the parallel line, y is going to be equal to 3/4 x but it's plus b, and we need to use this point to figure it out. So our y is going to be 1, our x is going to be -2, and then we just start simplifying that. So 1 is equal to, doesn't matter how you do it. I usually like to simplify this first, but if we don't, we can just simplify it after. So 6/4 is 3/2. Then, of course, we add that to both sides. And so we're going to get that b is equal to 1 plus 3/2. That's the same as 2/2 plus 3/2, which means that b is going to be 5/2. All right, so for A, the equation of our line that's parallel is going to be y equals, what was our slope? 3/4 x plus 5/2. Okay? Then we're going to tackle B. So for B, if we're looking for an equation of a line that is perpendicular and passing through this other point here. So again, if our slope was 3/4, then that means that the slope of the parallel line is going to be -4/3. We flip that fraction over and make it negative. So we're going to start out with that. Y equals -4/3 x plus b. Then we're going to plug in that point. So y is actually 3. Now I'm going to write that -1/2 as a fraction because I think that's easier. So, or 1 1/2, sorry. So -3/2 there, plus b. Now why am I doing that? Because like I said to you last time, it's a little bit easier sometimes if we simplify it before. So I'm going to do that this time. 3/3 is really just 1. So we can think of this as really being -1. And 4/2, I can divide those both by 2 to get this. Now I'm going to rewrite what that would equal, right? So it's still going to be -2/1 times -1/1 plus b. Okay, so it's just a lot. You don't have to rewrite it. I'm just doing it to kind of show you. Normally I'd go straight from this simplification to my answer, and I'll get 3 equals 2/1, which is just 2, plus b. Move that over, and I'll get 1 is equal to b. So then to write my full out equation, it would just be y equals -4/3 x plus 1. And that would be what you hopefully got for your final equation. Now, just real quick, I'll show you that if you had decided not to simplify it first, we will get exactly the same thing. So let's go back to this point here. Okay, and so if I work that out, I would of course get -4 times -3 is 12, 3 times 2 is 6, plus b. Now I can simplify it. 12/6 is 2. And so you can see here that no matter which way you decide to do it, you're still going to get b is equal to 1. So you do what's easier for you. I like simplifying it first, but obviously algebraically there's nothing wrong with simplifying it after you've multiplied. It's just whatever is easier for you. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Then we go into the formative. So as always, the answer key will be posted, so check that out. And yeah, see you next time.